Alrighty, hey, what's up? Hey Lloyd, good to see you here. How you doing, man? Alright, so as the usual process is for these lives, what's going to happen is I'm going to begin with a very short segment on the topic today, and the topic today is finding a career path in your 30s. After that, it's going to be followed with a Q&A where you can pretty much ask me anything related to career, life, personality, or pretty much anything you want, really. I'm generally pretty open to talking about anything. And so, for today's topic on finding your career path in your 30s, essentially, my best advice for finding your career path is to have a plan A. And why do I say plan A? Well, plan A is what gives you power. Power over your own destiny, power to say no, power to take ownership of your career development. A lot of times that when I work with people, when I hop on to calls with people who may want to work with me, one of the things that come up is like, man, in the past, John, everything that I've done for my career has fallen onto my lap. And when things fall onto your lap, it's just happen chance, and you really don't take ownership of that. And sure, coming out of college, you may want to take the first job available, right? Some people have a choice, some people maybe not so much. However, the reality is that when a job that falls on your lap is a blessing, at the same time, we got to be very mindful of the risks that it poses. Specifically, it's to the point where if you're not sure if this is something you want to do in the long run, you don't want to stick with that in the long run, right? And that's what plan A does. When you have a plan A, it pretty much is like, this is my destination, this is my ultimate goal, this is what I want to do for my career, and I don't want to deal with anything else. It gives you the power to say no to things because you see other options, other things may fall into your lap, and then you get to evaluate, is this something I want to do? Is this not part of my grand career plan, right? And so back in the day, when I first started working, one of my mentors told me, hey, we gotta have we gotta have a 5-year or 10-year plan, right? So actually, no, my mentor told me we gotta have 2 to 3 year plans now, right? And that was like 15 years ago. Nowadays, and 15 years ago, the talk was 5 to 10 year plan. When I first started working, my mentor told me, hey, maybe 2 to 3 year plan is much more feasible because of the rate things are changing. Nowadays, man, who knows what kind of pace you should have. And if you got any questions, feel free to drop it in the box. I'll be addressing that right after I finish this message. So plan A is the best thing that you could have. And, like people say, good is the enemy of great, right? And plan A gives you that power to say no to things. Now, how do you know what's a good plan A for you? Well, it comes down to several things. And one of the biggest variables I would say, and I've mentioned a lot about in this channel, is personality, right? And you use the Big 5 personality traits to figure that out. And if you want to take a free Big 5 personality traits, which is also known as the Ocean Test, feel free to take one in the description below. It's all there, it's free, and it's quick. It gives you a very high level view of what your personality is and what kind of workplace characteristics are the best fit for you. So personality is another thing. If you are an introvert, avoid jobs that are going to require you to be extroverted. If you are open-minded and you like diversity, you like the things changing all the time, and you hate mundane processes, then avoid jobs that are more traditional, that are in more traditional sectors, that require you to just push papers, cross the T's and dot the I's and so on, right? These are the jobs that you want to avoid. So personality is another major component of what will lead to a satisfying career. And that's why I highly recommend you check out that personality test that I've left in the description below. It gives you a good breakdown of what's out there. I mean, not what's out there, but what's a good fit for you, right? And then you can see what's out there. Now, what's the best way to see what's out there? Which is my third tip, which is to network. And it is so important to network because networking it basically, people like to hire those who they trust, right? Very few people want to bring strangers onto their teams. And so by networking, what happens is you bypass a lot of the screening that goes into finding a job or landing into a certain career path, right? Because there's something called the hidden job market, and people throw different numbers out for the hidden job market. One of the things that they throw out for the hidden job market is that, hey, did you know that 75% of the jobs are never advertised, and so on? And when you apply to something, you're competing with 100% of the pool for 25% of the jobs, right? That's what they say. Now, I've had conversations with recruiters and so on, and pretty much a lot of recruiters nowadays have the consensus that, most jobs are posted, right? Most jobs in the primary labor market are posted. However, I do have a caveat that this is when we're talking about the primary labor market, meaning the mainstream workforce. That's where a lot of the jobs are posted. If you are looking for a career path, you want to talk to people and you want to gain information, and the best way to do that is through informational interviews, because you may uncover career paths that are not known to you. You may uncover things that are not exactly published publicly, and therefore informational interviews is the main way to go, right? I would actually highly recommend you to check out a playlist I have on informational interviews, which I basically break down the whole process from beginning to end, how to do informational interviews, and what's the best way of achieving this career clarity and finding the path in front of you. Just got a question from Justin. I'll address it after I'm done my next point, right? So networking is key. If you actively network and let people know what you're looking for, essentially what you do is you 10x your reach, and people are able to tell you and show you, like, this is what you're looking for, here's something for you, right? And the last thing you gotta check is skills, right? You got to have the right skills for the job, and through the information interviews, you gain information, you learn what's out there, what skills you need to close, what are the latest trends, right? Trends are a huge thing. Disruption is going to be the norm. And that's why I thought I was talking about the 2-year plan and 2 to 3 year plan instead of like a 5 to 10 year plan now. And so find the skills, whatever soft skills that are in demand, whatever hard skills that are in demand, and upskill accordingly. And that way, by networking, by staying on top of the game, you know what's out there and you can forge your career path. In your 30s, this is particularly important because in your 20s, if you're job hopping, that's, like I've said in the past videos of mine, I have a playlist on job hopping, definitely cool stuff, check it out. In the past, I've said, if you are job hopping in your 20s, that's still socially acceptable. Workplace, it's still okay. If you're job hopping in your 30s, that raises a lot of question marks on your reliability, on your character, on your loyalty, on your skills. Who are you really? And you also lose whatever halo effect that you had or in your 20s in terms of the hustle, in terms of the energy and focus coming out as someone new and hungry in the workplace, right? If you're job hopping in your 30s, that's a big problem. So that's another thing I would say is you can't do that anymore at this point, and that's why you really got to narrow down and hone in on that career path at this point. All right, so that's all I have for my main points. I'm gonna get to some questions now. Justin asked the question. Sorry, got some phlegm. This year, I am trying to branch out in different areas. I have been taking classes on Skillshare for After Effects, animation, cybersecurity to see what it gets you. I don't want to go back to mundane general labor jobs. Love your content. Thank you very much, Justin. All right, I'm going to answer your question. If you guys got any other questions, drop it in, all right? And also, don't forget to give me a like and comment and stuff like that to please the YouTube gods. All right, so regarding your question, when I see this, I have a question for you, and I feel like it's kind of all over the place. After Effects, Adobe After Effects, obviously very important for graphics work nowadays. Animation is another beast. It's totally the other beast, right? Similar, right? You do use After Effects in animation, but it's a different thing. And then cybersecurity is another completely different field. So my question for you is what do you want to do? Because if you're going on Skillshare and you're spending time upskilling on these different things, and if a hiring manager opens up your resume and sees that, okay, you've checked the boxes of After Effects, animation, cybersecurity, my first question is, who are you? Who are you really? And I don't want to be harsh, but I feel like this instantly reflects the lack of clarity of what you want to do. So what do you want to do? Have you figured that out yet? And like I said earlier in the video, one of the things that you really want to do is to find out, take an inventory, like, make a plan A, understand your personality, right? And then find out what jobs are out there. What are the options? And that's done through networking. And so I think if you want to enter, cybersecurity, then go talk to cybersecurity people and upskill for cybersecurity. Because otherwise, right now, what this would lead to is, you're gonna run down different rabbit holes, upskill on different things, and who knows what you're gonna end up there. Wow, thank you, Lloyd. First super chat. Thanks for the super chat, Lloyd. Appreciate that. If you got a question, Lloyd, just drop it in the comment box. All right. So Justin, that's my point. Like, you got to figure out what you want. Otherwise, you're going to be going down different rabbit holes all the time, and you don't know what at the end of the day, you're going to be wasting time, right? Imagine you spend 3 months upskilling on After Effects. You buy the software, you get the training, right? After Effects, the subscription for Adobe, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but like $40 a month, $30-40 a month, right? And after you upskill for that, you're all over the place, right? Animation, you buy that software, unless you're using crack software, which is actually increasingly hard to use nowadays because the secure what is it? How the software protection is so much better, right? So Justin, my question for you is, like, going into who are planning to position themselves for work after COVID, for life after COVID, is to do those informational interviews, do the informational interviews, learn about different workplace options. That's to find your path, and then close that skills gap, right? In the hands of Rogers, because Rogers is the service provider that I go with. So my advice for people now, in terms of making this career pivot during COVID, is to find your career path, because now is the best time to make a career transition of any sorts. Because during this time, what's going to happen is, just like in '08, this is the best time to explain away any skills gap, any work gap that you have. So if in the future you talk to a hiring manager and they're like, oh, there's a gap here, and then you can simply explain away by saying, you know what, there's a gap here because it was COVID, right? And that's all you need to say. The last time this happened was in '08 during the Great Recession, and at that time you could also say, yeah, it was '08, right? Now it's like, it was COVID. And so if you are looking, the strategy for life after COVID is to close that skills gap, network like crazy, build that personal brand in the relevant network of people who are hiring, and start having conversations. And when because right now the strategy is not to get a job, right? If you get a job, awesome. The best strategy right now is to be the first one out of the gates once the floodgates open for hiring, and that's basically what you want to do, right? If you agree with that, give me a like. I would really appreciate that. And that's why I think now at this time, one of the best things for you to do is to gain that clarity for what you want to do in your career, so that you can continue advancing and you continue, okay, this is a year that you can actually explain away easily. So what are you going to do with this year? This is a lot of time. We have a lot of time in our hands right now. Back in the day, when things were still open, you'd go to work and it's going to be like, okay, I'm working. You're caught up in the hustle bustle. You're caught up in meetings. But now everything is work from home, right? And when you're working from home, what that means is you can basically like have your monitor open, and on the other hand, you're like upskilling and you're doing research and so on. All right, next question. Justin is asking, what's the informational interview? Very simple. Okay, I have a huge playlist on this. Definitely check it out. But a quick breakdown of what an informational interview is basically it's conversations. Some people call it networking, but informational interviews are a better way to call it, because it's, when you say networking, it comes across slimy. Like, I'm networking right now. Okay, what do you want? And networking is slimy. Like, some people hate it because of that. And it's slimy because you are going in there with the intention of getting something out of it, right? So it's like, even deep down inside, you usually don't network, but when you're networking, you usually want something, right? Informational interviews is purely the exchange of information. You're not asking for a job, right? That is the fundamental like starting point of departure. You go, you talk with people, and you learn about them. You learn about them, what makes them enjoy the job, what is the nature of the job, what are some components about what they do that makes them happy, and what are some things about their that makes them unhappy. How about their company? Is their company good in supporting their career development? Is their company bad? What's the culture? How is work-life balance? How is the compensation? You can ask like, but ballpark. And through that process, by doing that, what happens is you gain an understanding of that place, you gain an understanding of that individual, and you leave it there, right? And the reason why you do an information interview is you want to get information on whether this is a career or a job that you want to pursue. So information interviews, a lot of people are throwing advice out there on YouTube saying, yeah, the best way to land a job is through information interviews to bypass the ATS, right? The applicant tracking system, which is the robot that screens all the resumes. But the truth is, everyone is doing that. Like, I'm talking to recruiters right now who are telling me that, you know what, John, people at Amazon, Facebook, Google, Netflix, like the FANG companies, what they're going through right now is literally everyone is sending them a freaking like LinkedIn in-mail asking, hey, can I have 20 minutes to pick your brain or 1 hour to pick your brain? Nobody likes their brain to be picked, all right? Number one, I just think that's just a bad choice of words. But and then through that process, everyone knows like you are doing this so that you can land a job at my company so that I can vouch for you and so on. But a lot of times these big companies, like the FANG companies, what happens is that these companies are so big that they really don't have any sway or influence during the hiring for the hiring decision other than a hiring manager. And the hiring managers are all getting swamped with messages. So my advice to a lot of people is actually like, don't go for like the biggest companies. Go for the companies that, because you actually like them, you actually use their stuff. And the FANG ones are just overwhelmed because there's a lot of red tape for them to to screen for the best candidates. Like one job opens up, they get 100, like Google, I think like one time one job opened up and they got like 3,000 applicants in like within the day. Something like crazy like that. So, I mean, what are your chances there, right? So that's why informational interviews is you go talk to people, learn more about that individual, and so on. And so if you're doing that with a company that's not as big as the FANGs, what's going to happen is you're going to have some real conversations and you're going to learn more about their jobs. And even if your ultimate destination is a FANG company, because you got your foot in the door into the industry, you can then use that as a stepping stone to get into FANG, right? But anyways, information interviews is you talk to people, get to know them, ask for only 20 minutes. Don't ask for an hour because 1 hour is too much. 20 minutes, it's just enough for a coffee, and then you can ask for future referrals, right? And that's what we call snowball interviewing. You snowball and you get more people, and then before you know it, you know the whole department or the whole team. And in the future, if they're hiring, they're like, yeah, we all talked to this guy. This guy's solid. Boom, hired, right? As long as you have all the hard skills and soft skills required. I mean, especially the hard skills if that's what you're looking for. The soft skills is the trust bit, the social bit that you really want to build. Remote teams is a new thing that's going to play a big factor in it. I'll love to talk about remote teams a little bit more, especially like remote teams post COVID. That's going to be a very interesting trend because like if you used to work in Manhattan, like live in Manhattan, and you had to work in Manhattan, and then you decide to move to like, I don't know, Mississippi, right? Are you going to get paid the same rate as living in New York and working in New York? Like, what's the situation going to be like? And what if you decide to move to like Colombia or something, which is like, living standards is, I don't know, like just a fraction of living in New York, right? Is the company going to pay you the same? How is that going to do for your advancement, right? And so on. So these are all questions worth considering. Okay, Omar Yang asked the question, what is your opinion on the potential of being let go later for remote, I was just talking about remote jobs, for a remote job in other states that go back to office after COVID? Okay. People right now, I know people right now in the workforce who are getting hired as consultants to address this specific issue, right? A lot of people are starting to realize like, hey, we can do remote teams, and how is that going to impact our workforce in the future? So on the potential of being let go later for remote jobs in other states that go back to office after COVID, I mean, it depends on the company. A lot of times it's out of your control. And like, who's not to say, like you say, you're saying in other states, but man, I think you're like the biggest competitors right now are not in other states. They're in other countries. Like, can you like, for example, when I hire people to do my to do some of my YouTube videos, right? I can choose to hire someone in Canada for like, one video for like $70, $100 easily, or versus someone in Ukraine who can do the same thing for like $20, $30, half the price easily, right? And and if you're living in the States, for example, I know Omer, I remember you're in the States, or you're somewhere in the prairies. Let me know where you're from. Actually, I'm curious. But the thing is, if you are in the U.S., what happens is they gotta pay benefits. There's laws they have to observe, and employment laws, and so on, right? And taxes and so on. But if they hire people remotely, yeah, it's a real threat, and that's why these are interesting conversations in the future, right? Right now, some of the consultants that I've talked to, what they're at Minnesota, awesome. Yeah, I remember the states, and it's somewhere like just south of the prairies, right, in Canada. So Minnesota. So one of the things that the consultants are actually recommending is every company, you should talk to your employees and just be transparent about. Like, for example, Facebook is very transparent in their salary and benefits, that there are people, if you decide to move to another state that has like much cheaper living expenses, don't expect to get paid the same as living in California, period. Like Northern California, Southern California, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get paid the same, right? So the potential of being let go is real. The competition is going global, and as like India rises, China rises, I think people got to be really careful that they can't easily be replaced, and therefore they got to stay on top of their game, right? And when it comes to workplace trends, several things are growing really quickly. Number one, definitely like coding is a major skill, and also another thing is you want to develop soft skills, right? Especially soft skills that allow you to work in the online space, to communicate. Because communication is going to be so much more difficult when you are not doing in-person scrums, right? And communication, the nature of it is going to completely change. Right now, where everything is done on Zoom or Teams, but later on, when 5G goes online, I mean, what is it going to be? Holographs? I mean, we're gonna like some of the Star Wars stuff that you see, like the projected image. Who knows, right? So, I don't really have a good answer to that. I think there is a potential. People are seeing the possibility for remote jobs to be an option in the future, and therefore we got to stay on our toes. These conversations are happening right now. Now, there's something to be said about COVID workplace culture, like remote work, versus non-COVID, right? Because COVID forces people to stay home. When COVID lockdowns are over, what's going to happen, right? We don't know. But the workplace is going to be very different. There's probably going to be a lot more flexibility, because we're finding productivity can actually increase as a result of working from home, right? A lot of the day. And another thing is, what we're finding is, the schmoozers, the people who are like cronies in the workplace, we all know who they are, right? When you're at work, you see people schmoozing all the time. All they do is socialize and network. Are they still gonna do very well? Because I mean, can they perform? Right? I think a lot of these things would be removed, or at least it'll be different. Right? So, yeah, I hope that answers your question, Omar. Let me know if you got any other questions about this. Be glad to talk about it. Lloyd, are there ways to become more visible when you're working online with a virtual team? I found it challenging when you don't have a face-to-face contact in the same physical space as you. Yeah. So the reason for that, very simple. We have something in our brains called mirror neurons. And what the mirror neurons do is it's in our fast brain, right? I talk a lot about fast brain and slow brain in my videos. The fast brain is essentially your emotional brain, your gut instinct. That's what saves you when you're driving down the freeway or highway, and there's a car coming, and you're like, oh, you avoid it, right? But And the fast brain, it takes about like 0.2 milliseconds for you to respond. Um, Now, when it comes to face-to-face contact, a lot of times is you notice when people are really in sync, what happens is they mirror one another. So if you're talking to someone and they cross their arms and you're really, in sync, you will cross your arms too, unknowingly. Sometimes back in high school, it's crazy. I had a friend who spoke with a Persian accent with his English, and I hung out in his home for for 5 hours to work on a school project. And by the time I walked out of the house, I was literally speaking with a Persian accent just like him. That was a lame accent, I know, but I was speaking with a Persian accent that mirrored him exactly, and it's bizarre, but it's basically those are the little human nuances that allow people to connect, and that allows trust to be built, and that allows for solidarity, right? For like team spirit and all that stuff. And what is that going to look like in the future? I think technology has yet to catch up to that. I think 5G is going to be a major player in that for remote teams. And I think these are things that would matter, right? You're right. It's hard. And the thing about Zoom meetings is like Zoom meetings, it's hard to have 10 people talking at the same time, right? You can't talk over one another. Otherwise, it'll be pure chaos. But sometimes, in team scrums and where you need what Adam no not Adam Grant doesn't call it, Adam Grant at Wharton at UPenn, but like he talks about the idea of burstiness, right? The ideas of simultaneously bursting ideas. So they did brain studies where they did did an MRI on people's brains while they're emailing one another, right? And the control group is emailing one another, and they know that the person on the other side is not there real time, versus people who are emailing one another and they know that each other are there at the same time. And they look at the brain, and the brains fundamentally use different parts. When you're writing someone and you know they're not there, you're using a different part of your brain versus some which is less bursty, less spontaneous, less creative, versus knowing someone who's there and your brain mirror neurons are actively trying to mirror the other person across the email, but you don't know if they're because they're gonna read it immediately, right? And your brains just act differently. And so this burstiness, this spontaneousness that comes from scrums, that comes from like brain hackathons or brain hacking sessions or whatever, right? These are the things that get lost. But technology is going to catch up with that. I'll be very honest with you. I think 5G is going to get, that's going to be taken care of with 5G, right? Now, whether the mediums it can actually do, whether we actually have holograph projectors to actually do all this stuff, or are we going to plug into the matrix, or, go like sword art online, everyone like puts on the VR goggles, I don't know. But 5G is but increased connectivity is going to make a huge difference for that. All right, Justin's question, right? Yeah, if you guys got any questions, drop it in the comment box below. Would love to answer everyone. Also, give me a like if you like what you're hearing, right? If it's providing value for you. So Justin, for information interviews, should I do them on Facebook or LinkedIn? Okay, the best thing to do is email, because we know for a fact that not everyone has LinkedIn, but definitely everyone has email, right? So email is the first choice, and send 3. Like go with 3. Space them out approximately 5 to 7 days. Right? Hey, I sent you an email last week. I haven't heard back from you. I'm wondering if it's possible to chat for 20 minutes. I'll buy the coffee, right? Send them a coupon or something. My friend Ray Kanani at Intellex actually has a service called Coffees on Us. I'll type it into the box. Coffees on Us, and basically there you can buy someone a coffee. A Starbucks coffee very easily, right? Just buy the coupon and then send it over, and then just have a conversation, and don't be cheap about it, right? Just buy it, and just buy it first and then send it, right? Don't send it to them and then like if they're not gonna hop on a call and cancel it, because that just looks bad. Small world, they may see you again, and if you do something like skimp out on a coffee for a 20-minute conversation, it's kind of not cool. Right, so just buy for them first. Now, so if email doesn't work, then go on LinkedIn. And for LinkedIn, it would require if you can directly network to them, awesome. It may require you to send some in-mails, right? Which would mean you need LinkedIn Premium Career, which costs like in Canada it costs $39.99 a month, right? So basically, get that LinkedIn Premium and start messaging people. Now, one of my best advice, and don't do it on Facebook. Facebook is it's become personal space, right? So don't do that. Look up their emails. There's I think my connection in on LinkedIn. One of my friends, Austin Belsack, he has something that's for finding people's emails based on their workplace. So you want to check that out. I actually forgot the link of it, but if you just look up Austin Belsack for like resume for email finder, right? He runs he helps people get jobs, right? That's his specialty. Without the interview process and so on. But if you look up his name, he's got a huge following. I think he's got like 300K following on LinkedIn. But essentially, he has a tool that helps you find people's workplace emails, at least the best guess, and then you just email there and have that conversation there. When you are doing this, my recommendation is to ask like 50 people, right? Have a target job, have several targets, and send like 20 to 30 like messages or emails to them, put it on a spreadsheet. And the reason why you want to do that is because the response rate is probably going to be about 5 to 10%. So if you send like email to someone and you're banking on them to reply you, and the response rate is 5 to 10%, that just makes you feel miserable. But if you do it at scale and you do it with heart, right? What happens is, if they respond to you, you only need one person to respond to you, so to have that conversation. And then at the end of that conversation is like, hey, 20 minutes, don't ask for more. This was a great conversation. I learned a lot from you. I really appreciate it. Is there anyone else you feel that you look up to in your industry that you feel I should talk to? And when you say don't say like, do you have anyone I could talk to? Because they'll be like, what do you mean by anyone? I can give you anyone. That means I'll give you no one, because I don't know what you want. But if you say specify, hey, is there anyone that you look up to, that you respect in your industry, that you feel like I should have a conversation with to learn more about this career path? When you say that, what happens is, I respect this person. Here, talk to them, right? And then they'll gladly refer you, and that's what we call a snowball interviewing, snowball sampling. When you interview, and by that, after you talk to that person, you ask for a few more, and over time, what you realize is you're gonna talk to a lot of people in that industry. You're gonna have a lot of information. And so on. But if you just email one person and you're banking on that, your chances are pretty slim, right? And so you don't want to do that. If you send like 100 emails or 100 LinkedIn messages, and you just follow up on them religiously, then you won't get hurt. Your feelings won't be hurt, because you'll be like, oh, okay, well, it's just a statistic. It's a numbers game. So yes, there's a people side to it. People are saying oh yeah, don't forget the human element of networking. But it's also a numbers game, because not everyone wants to talk to you, right? Period. And end of story, right? I get for my work, I get a lot of people who message me and asking me for free career advice, and I always tell them to I don't always do it, but now I'm telling them yo, show up to my lives. I'll be glad to chat to you on my lives. But in my free, in my LinkedIn or my email inbox, I seriously, I honestly don't have time to it. I generally give tailored, deep responses to my paying clients. And these people aren't even career coaches. These are people just you just want information on whether that industry is a good fit for them or not. So that's really important. Okay, does that answer your question? So do email first, then LinkedIn, then Twitter. I would say Twitter. If they have Twitter, go for them on Twitter as well, right? Twitter is open space, and it's easy to find people on Twitter. And if if all three options don't work, then move on. Find the next one, right? So I hope that helps. Let me know if you got any other questions. All right. Yeah, I just didn't feel like I was a team, but rather just a worker that they plugged in. Yeah, that's the risk of remote work. When people a lot of times remote work, when people hire remote workers, a lot of times they want people to hit the ground running, and they want it to be plug and play. Right? Pretty much plug you in a position, you do the work, we all good. But that takes out the element of humanity, of that team spirit, of those relationships. All that goes down the drain as a result. And some of it has to do with leadership. right? Another thing is like, how do you implement workplace culture? Culture, right? Everyone's talking about culture, team cultures, team spirit, company, corporate culture. How do you incorporate that in a remote work environment, right? These are all questions that needs to be addressed in the coming in the coming years, right? If you agree, give me a thumbs up. Someone just give me a thumbs up. Awesome. But yeah, these are things that are worth considering. Um, I want to go back. I mean, ask. Feel free to drop down any questions if you got anything. All right. But like another, I want to go back to the conversation on remote work. I think, everyone's talking about, but like a lot of people talk about the digital nomad stuff, right? If you're on Instagram, oh my goodness, like everyone and their mom's a coach nowadays. I'm not even kidding. And a lot of it, or someone's like drop shipping on Amazon, and or creating drop ship sites. No, not drop shipping on Amazon. Like creating Amazon brands, or they're drop shipping, right? And using something like ClickFunnels or whatever. These are like the common things that you see nowadays, especially in the e-com space, right? Shopify, ClickFunnels, all that stuff. Now, the thing is this: a lot of the competition is now getting sucked out of the actual geography, right? So a lot of times, people still need to eat locally, right? You're not going to do that as a digital nomad. So as a lot of people move to the online space, opportunities are actually going to show up in local spaces as well, right? Geographies. And like, for example, malls are getting shut down, right? I don't know if anyone came across this article, but there's recently someone shorted this is this hedge fund company that shorted malls in America. And what happened during COVID was a lot of malls went bust. A lot of malls were already dying, right? Especially it's this like malls as a phenomenon, we take them for granted, but they really exploded in the 50s to 70s. And what happened was with COVID, it was the last straw, and a lot of malls went bust, right? It was a lot of it is on bad money. A lot of it's on bad debt, and as a result, what's going to happen to these malls? Because these are a lot. It's a lot of infrastructure that's being built, and people are talking about like, are they going to be like test sites for Amazon products? Are they going to be server sites? Are they going to be warehouses for Amazon or other companies to ship their stuff out locally so that's faster, right? We don't know what that space is going to be like. But I'm a father. I have 3 kids. Even though the local space is changing, I still need my kids to learn stuff, right? My kids still need to learn swimming at the local swimming place. My kids still need to do this and that, right? I still need to these kind of different services. And so a lot of times, a lot of the space, everyone's talking about the online space because it's easy. You can do it remote, and people are like, oh, work from a resort, right? All that stuff, but. Yeah, I mean, but these are interesting conversations to be had, and I think new opportunities are going to arise after COVID. Thank you, John. When I mentioned earlier about class and Skillshare, I just wasn't sure what I should pursue. Didn't intend to be all over. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people who I end up working with, this is usually one of the starting points is like, I don't know what to upskill, right? There's a lot of things, and this is this idea called multi-potentialite. Have you heard of that? Have you guys heard of that? If you heard of multi-potentialite, like leave a comment below. All right, but multi-potentialite is an idea that's somebody did a TED talk on it before, and they coined that word, and that person wrote a book and so on, right? And that's kind of their thing. But multi-potentialite is basically someone with high in trade openness and can do a lot of things. And are somewhat intelligent and have learned a lot of things. In fact, a lot of us are like multi-potentialites, where all of us are multi-potentialites. So there's a million things that we could all do, really, right? And that's the benefit of growing up or being in the West, right? We have the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice is essentially there's too many things to choose from. The burden of responsibility is too great because the stakes are high. You go down any one path, you don't know which one's gonna be the right one for you. Right? Because you don't know. You paralysis by analysis. And so that's one of the things that people struggle with. And we never really learn it in school. And like recently on a call with a prospective client, and she ended up becoming a client, one of the conversations that we had was like, by working to gain that clarity, and my title says everything. I'm a career clarity coach. By working to gain that clarity, what happens is, you basically do the whole Doctor Strange process, right? Doctor Strange looks into the future, sees 14,600,000 and whatever thousand futures, and there's only one of them where you beat Thanos, right? And you can't even tell Iron Man what it is. However, the reality is finding a career that's going to make you happy. There's probably going to be like 500 and something thousand futures that's going to make you happy, right? So essentially, by working with a life coach or a career coach or someone who has a system to help you narrow down the process on how do you actually find a career that's going to be, that you're going to be happy with, or increase the odds so that you're going to find something that you love. What you do is you get rid of like the other 13.5 million possibilities, and then you still end up with 500,000, but all 500,000 are sound choices. There's not really a right or wrong. The messiness of life doesn't just simply disappear. You still have to put in the work. You still got to close that skills gap, go to Skillshare and learn stuff, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, whatever. You still got to learn all those things. But basically, you got to close that skills gap and figure that out. All right, Jennifer's got a question. I started journaling to build self-awareness and career clarity. Are there any questions or prompts that you recommend I ask myself to reflect on and think about? Yes, I would recommend you to write these down. The first of all, actually, before I even get there, I want to say that for journaling, it does take time, right? So I used to write lyrics. I took courses at Berklee School of Music. In my previous life, I wanted to be a musician, and I see that guitar in the back, right? I wanted to be a musician, and one of the things I did was learn how to write lyrics. And one of the exercises that we did was just journal, right? Have an idea. So just think, one of the ideas is I don't know, black pen, right? Black pen. And that was and then you write a whole bunch of stuff about a black pen. And you use as many adjectives as possible to describe that black pen. And what happens is, on your first attempt on writing about a black pen, you do only for 5 minutes. Don't do it for like 30 minutes. It's not because not everyone can do it for 30 minutes, right? You burn yourself out. You start with 5 minutes, and then you write about a black pen. But next time you write about an Apple pen, right? And what happens is, the second time you take like 7 minutes, right? Increase the time. And then, because each time you dive, it's like diving in and you getting that pearl out. Each time you dive, you get to dive deeper, and you get to go deeper into your self-awareness, into your subconscious, and find out what you really want. And I don't want to call it like subconscious, actually. I like to call it metaconscious. Because the difference between subconscious and metaconscious is subconscious is underneath something, and you can never really find it out, and you can't even prove it really exists. That's why it's not exactly a good term. Metaconscious makes a lot more sense, because if you think about it, you can find it, right? So some questions for number one, I would say don't expect to do one deep dive and find the answer, right? You're not going to find it in only one deep dive. Now, if you're ready to get some reps in, some questions I would say is, what are things that make you happy? What are things that make you feel fulfilled at work? What are things that make you feel fulfilled at home? What are some hobbies that make you feel fulfilled, right? And what are some relationships that make you feel fulfilled? And so these are things that you cover different aspects of your life, because your career is never really only about your career. Your career has to fit with your life as well, right? So if your career is sucking you away from your relationships, that's why I had a question about relationships, because you need to know, if it's taking away from your relationship. If it is, then what does that mean for that career? Is it something that you really want? Is your priority your relationship? Because if you're clocking 80-hour work weeks and you enter an industry that requires you, like management consultant, I have a friend got into McKinsey as an associate. And he worked there, and he thought it was his dream job, flew over to Shanghai, and he worked at McKinsey for a year, and then he burnt himself to the ground, and he left, and he's like, screw this, it's not worth it, right? And he moved to Hong Kong, and he's still working management consultant, but just not McKinsey, because it just burns him to the ground, and he came to realize that. The best two questions I have, so these are like some guiding questions at the very beginning. Do each of them for about 1 to 2 minutes. Set a time limit for yourself. Don't go ham on all of them. Just 1 or 2 minutes, warm up. And then the last two questions, right? Once you're done the warm ups, The last two questions I would say is, what is your heaven? What would your heaven look like? If everything worked out in your career and in your life and everything, what would heaven look like? And the next thing is, if everything did not work and everything has hit the fan and ruin is gonna fall upon you and everything is not working, what would hell look like? Right? Write your heaven and hell situation so that you know what you should pursue and what you should avoid. And that's basically my recommendation for. And so this quick exercise, 1 or 2 minutes each for the warm-up questions. You can add more if you want, if different components of your life. 1 or 2 minutes of each of them, and then the last two, 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes for each, right? For heaven, and 3 to 5 minutes for hell. So the beginning is just a warm-up, just to warm up your brain to get into that state of what we call self-hypnosis, right? Or state of reverie, actually. A state of reverie is kind of like awake dreaminess. That's what a reverie is. And so when you get into that state, what happens is you are able to get into your metaconscious or subconscious and tease out what is it that you really want deep inside, right? So that's one component. That's the internal component for clarity, right? Does that help? Let me know. And if you got any other questions about it, feel free to ask, because self-journaling is probably the best thing that you can do for yourself. Right? And when people go see a therapist and go see a shrink, that's literally like 80% of what they're doing. Asking questions, bouncing ideas, and allowing you to articulate your thoughts and speak out and enter a state of hypnosis or reverie. And it's not like, get out type of hypnosis where, you fall into whatever happens and get out. But it's kind of getting you fully relaxed so that you can articulate what you really want. Right, and when you do that, you're gonna find yourself, with a lot and exit with a lot of clarity. Because what happens psychologically, I'll explain the mechanisms. Very, very simple. When people feel stress, fear, anxiety, unhappiness, stuff that just makes them feel bad, what's going on is there's two parts of their brain. There's the inside part near the brainstem. People in the olden days call it the limbic. Olden days, like 40, 50 years ago, we'll call it the limbic system. Some people call it the lizard brain. Nowadays, the easier way is just call it the fast brain, the fast emotional brain. That part of the brain is messy, and it's what keeps you alive, right? And that's what's good for you, because it keeps you alive. You don't do something stupid. By this journal exercise, by doing this kind of journal exercise, this is what we call guided journalism, or guided autobiography writing. What happens is it moves all the fear and anxiety and stress that you're feeling, and it puts it into the prefrontal cortex, the neocortex, the logical part of the brain, the slow part of the brain, and that can deal with complex problems. And by writing it out, you literally move the crap that's like deep inside to the outside, make sense of it, removes the fear, and without the fear, it removes any inhibition for action, and then you can take action. Right? So that is, to clarify, is self-journaling a great way to figure out the career that you want? Absolutely. It is. In my work with my clients, I give a lot more detailed instructions and guidance for the self-journaling. But basically, it's part of the program that I do for my clients in the paid program. That's what I do. It's guided, and every time you want, like, you feel fear, you get crushed by fear and anxiety, just say before you send out those informational interview requests, you're like, I'm terrified, write the hell situation, write the heaven situation. What you're going to find is the heaven situation is you talk to people and they explain everything to you. You find a mentor and they're going to give you a job right after you upskill, right? The hell situation, what you're going to find is people delete your email, and that's it. And then you realize hell ain't that hellish. And you're like, okay, I can go ahead and take action on this. Does it make sense, Justin? Jennifer, this helps. Thank you, John. I have not thought to ask myself on what the heaven and hell would look like for me before. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like, only for career clarity. It could be for anything, right? So you break down the unit of analysis. Right now, it's about finding your career path. Sure. But later on, if it's like, my relationship is not working with my partner, what's the heaven situation, what's the hell situation, right? Do the warm up first because you can't just dive deep immediately. Do the warm up, and then or if it's like a relationship with your family, or relationship with coworkers, or choosing between two career paths, or if you're finding out that like, hey, right now my job is not making me happy. If you're gainfully employed and you're like, my job is not making me happy, what can I do to what's my health situation, what's my heaven situation, right? Is there a link for self journaling? No, there is not. This is within my paid program. So if you are interested in learning more, then we can hop on a call and I'll be glad to explain everything to you. Okay, this is within my program. So, but basically, a very bare bones outline would be exactly what I just explained here. And if you just do that, it pretty much does the same thing. And on top of that, and so like, what I would say is in terms of like, really gaining that career clarity on what you want, the final outcome that you want is like, because journaling is one thing, right? It removes the inhibition and it gives you clarity on what you really want. However, at the same time, this is where I'm like, I'm a big believer on personality testing, and personality testing based on good science, right? So not stuff like MBTI, not like Enneagram, nothing like, none of the old like psychology stuff that's no longer used. If you go on Google Scholar, you look up big 5 personality traits, or the 5-factor model, it's the golden standard. Like everyone talks about it. If you look up MBTI, like 20,000 citations versus like 8 million, 16 million, like it's dwarfed by it. So big 5 personality traits. And so that's why to gain that clarity, what I highly recommend is getting a career statement, right? What a career statement is an articulation of exactly what you want in your career. So not only, so yeah, you get that clarity, you dive in, you find out, okay, yeah, I feel this, I feel better, right? Cool. But so what? What is the destination? And a career statement embodies that with good personality testing, with psychometrics, and also with diving deep, and also using different models that is done through personality testing. You come for the typical person with your personality, like, because you may be misguided. You may feel at that time while you're journaling that, I want to be a developer, and then you realize like, I actually hate the coding, right? I actually like something else. You may be totally misguided because you don't know what you don't know, right? That's the problem. You don't know what you don't know, and that's what causes paralysis as well. So the career statement is an embodiment of all of this. You know what you want. You know what's inside. You know the average person with your personality profile likes X, Y, Z, and you will probably value something similar because the odds are saying this is, what your personality is typically like. And then you go find something in that career, right? With that career statement, then what happens? I don't know if you've checked out my previous videos. With that career statement, you walk around, you network, you walk into an information interview and you're like, hey, this is my career statement. This is exactly what I want, right? Very short, one paragraph. You can explain it in like 1 minute, 30 second, the 30-second elevator pitch, the 2-minute lobby pitch, right? Give them that pitch. This is what I want in my career. Is there something in your industry that resembles this? And because at that point, that becomes your plan A, like I talked about in this video, in the beginning of this video, right? You need to have a plan A. When you give someone a plan A, they're like, I know how to get you to plan A, or I don't know how to get you to plan A, right? But they'll know exactly what you're looking for. If you walk into a networking session and you talk to someone and you give them and they give you 20 minutes of their time and you're like, I don't know what I want, it's not their responsibility. I'm sorry. Like you're wasting their time. They feel like you're wasting their time, and it looks bad on you. And you just burnt whatever opportunity that presented itself, right? So that's why a career statement, one short paragraph embodying everything that you want in your career, is super helpful. After that, you go network, find out the possibilities, set a destination, create a plan, and close the skills gap. And that's it. That's how you land in your dream career. So you find your career through the career, gaining that clarity, journaling, personality testing, researching, and then with an action plan and the removal of any inhibition or fear that you have, You just take progress, right? And so the biggest problem, so that's basically the formula. Like if you decide to work with me and that's my program, that's basically what it is. However, the biggest problem that most people have is not actually a strategy. The biggest problem that people have is that they can't execute, meaning they don't hold themselves accountable, because accountability is a thing, and that's why people work with coaches, right? It's like investing in a trainer. If you put money down and work with a trainer, what happens is you're gonna show up, or else you're gonna you use the sunk cost fallacy to your advantage, right? What happens is essentially you work, if you work with a trainer and you don't do the work, you're wasting your time. You're wasting the trainer's time. The trainers, some trainers are mean. They'll call you out, and other trainers are like, "Cool, I get more money in my pocket, but my client is not getting success, and I'm not gonna get a good testimonial. I'm not gonna get good results. I can't post before after pictures on IG, and it's gonna hurt my business, right?" So that's why working with a career coach is helpful, because I hold my clients accountable. Over the New Year's, one of the things that I did was I shot all my clients a short video, thanking them for working together, being expressing a lot of gratitude. But another thing is New Year's resolution. What's your goal? I want to hold you accountable, right? Give me something to hold you accountable with. We got to set a goal. I'm gonna grab you and we're gonna do this together, right? Of course, I can't care more than my client, right? It's not my career, it's their career. But my job is to ask them, hey, so recently, I had a client whose life got busy, and I had to email them. It was hey, yo, I haven't heard from you for a while. What's up? We need to start working on your plan, right? Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. And and then we booked a follow-up call just to get back on track, because it does happen. Life does happen, right? And so, Justin, okay, I will book a call. Awesome. I look forward to talking to you. Here's the site to book a call, right? Dr. Jon Tam /apply. Very easy. If you want, or anybody else who is on this call right now, if you want to learn more about what I do in detail in terms of my Career Clarity Mastery Program, be glad to hop on a call with you, explain everything, and chat, right? Strategy, I already gave it to you. It's right there. But I think a lot of the stuff, such as the psychometric, the personality testing, interpretation, having a system that's tried and true and proven to work, all of these things are, that's the benefit of working with a coach versus doing it yourself. Sometimes, honestly, I hop on calls with people and I get to know them. I understand their problems. Yo, you don't need me. Seriously, what you need is a job coach. There's a difference between a job coach and a career coach. And this is one of the things I hate about my industry, is there's a lot of people who call themselves career coaches, but what they are is actually, I help people find a job, right? That's not exactly a career coach. Let's make a clear distinction here. A job coach is someone who gets people jobs, writes resumes, optimizes LinkedIn, does career profiles, and teaches interview skills and all that. That's a job coach. A career coach is more, some people are career executive coaches. They work with executives to break through, to rise to a higher level, and some of them work with branding or learning their soft skills to become better leaders, and so on. And in my case, I'm at the intersection of a career coach slash life coach, because some people don't know what they want to do with their career, and that's perfectly okay. That's normal. In fact, if you think you know what you want to do, you're actually in the minority, because most of the time, life, especially life in the modern world, in modern society, you're actually in a position where it's they don't teach it to you in school. Their careers program in school is usually just not exactly great. Actually, it's pretty bad, and we're all products of it. If you guys got any questions, drop it in. All right, I'd like to take one more question before I wrap things up. It's 3 already, and my time is already up. I'd like to take one more question. So if there's any questions, feel free to drop it in. I feel the role of a job developer is on the decline. Giving all the job search engines, you are wrong on that. All right, and let me explain why. Okay, what do you mean by a job developer, by the way? So you got to explain that first. But but one of the things about recruiters or headhunters and so on is that they are, so there's different levels, right? some people ask me like, why don't I just reach out to a recruiter or a headhunter to find a job? You can do that, but if it's not something that but they're doing it to fill their pockets and to satisfy their clients, and their clients are the people who are paying them to find the best candidates. If you have no idea what you want and your resume is like I do, sorry, I'm using your example as an example again, Justin. But your resume says After Effects, animation, and cybersecurity. The headhunter sees it, and that's what you have in your resume, and and they're not going to pass that resume on to a hiring manager, because it's like the hiring manager will see it and it's like, this guy's a generalist. This guy doesn't know what he or she wants, and they're not going to stick around. Retention is an issue. If they hire someone and they leave, then that's like 40% of that person's pay down the drain, because they're paying the recruiter for these leads, for talent acquisition, right? So if what you mean is a job developer are recruiters or talent acquisition, I can guarantee you that's not going away anytime soon, because people are social creatures. We rely on networks, and that's how we build things, right? If you agree with me, give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Because, I mean, recruiters and hiring managers, they work for themselves. They get paid, they get a cut every time they bring in good talent. And they're those who are like executive recruiters or executive headhunters, and they stay in different industries. So I have a friend who is in the supply chain industry, and she is a headhunter there. And what she does is she brings supply chain talent to different people. And so within her pool of candidates, within her pool of network, these are people that she can refer to different companies every time there's an opportunity. So that's why networking is so important for a headhunter or a recruiter. But a headhunter and recruiter would rarely gamble on someone who's switching careers, right? So Justin, if you're like trying to figure out your career and you don't know exactly what you want to do, they're not going to gamble on you. They want someone who is established, who is a proven product, who they can recommend to a hiring manager, and then once they hire that person, they're happy with that person. Because if they're not happy with that candidate, it looks bad on the headhunter and it looks bad on the recruiter, and that hurts their pockets in the long run, right? Someone who keeps an eye on potential job alerts. I'm always seeing job alerts from an email. Yeah, that's mostly automation service. That's mostly automated service. If you're on LinkedIn, you would get LinkedIn notifications for different jobs. So if you clicked into a certain job profile and that's not what you expressed interest in before, and you ask LinkedIn to show you similar jobs, LinkedIn will automatically push emails to you every time a similar position is open. So that's not exactly a job developer. That's more of like, just a job database pushing notifications to people, because they still want people to apply, right? The hidden job market is not. It is, I talked about it earlier in the video. Go back and check it out if you want. The hidden job market is real. There are a lot of jobs that are not posted, but the reality is that a lot of jobs still are posted because there are requirements that they have to fulfill. There are protocols that they have to meet, and that's why they have to post the jobs. But whether you actually have a real shot at it or not is a totally different animal, right? Because if they post a job, the headhunter or recruiter may actively be looking for people with the skill sets on LinkedIn and pitching them offers. So they want multiple streams of people to enter their hiring funnel as well. And that's one thing you gotta keep in mind as someone who's looking for a job, right? But in your case, I mean, given I'm a career clarity coach, yes, I do dabble in that space. I can tell people how to write the best resumes, interviews, and all that stuff. But that's only after you gain that clarity. Because if you don't have that clarity, like I don't know if you were at the Career Relaunch Summit that took place several weeks ago. Leave me a comment if you were part of that, actually. I'll be really interested to see if any of you guys were actually from the Career Relaunch Summit. But what happened at the Career Relaunch Summit, one of my main takeaways is that a lot of the resume coaches there, they're saying... what they're saying is that, a lot of the resumes we see that's making the whole online application like really annoying, and then like creating the robot talk, the ATS talk, filtering people, how your resume will never get to the hiring manager, is because a lot of people are just throwing spaghetti to the wall, and a lot of the resumes are Hail Marys and hoping to get lucky, right? And a lot of the hiring managers, the first instant they pick up the resume, they'll be able to tell whether you are someone who belongs or someone who does not belong in their industry, someone they want on their team or not. And that's a 6-second test, right? And that's why career clarity is always important. You got to have a plan A, you got to have clarity on exactly what you want, and then close that skills gap, make sure you're qualified, and then just work towards it. And if you don't have that clarity, it's pointless. It's really pointless. Jennifer, you are part of Diana Chan's Career Relaunch Summit. Yeah, I think I'm guessing a handful of you are from there because it was a great event. But as a career clarity coach, working with personality profiles and psychology and all that, that's one of my main takeaways is that a lot of people are struggling to find jobs. Yes, there's a supply and demand issue, right? There's a lot of demand. There's not a lot of supply. The economy has gone, has gone down the tank. But and remote work is becoming a thing now. But the reality is that a lot of people, you fix that clarity bit, you know exactly how to brand yourself. You know exactly what words you want to put in your resume. You know exactly how you want to, frame your LinkedIn profile, and that creates inbound recruiting. What inbound recruiting is recruiters going on LinkedIn, typing in different skills, typing in different keywords, and looking for people with those skills and looking for people with those keywords so that they can hire them. Because remember, every time they bring a good hire, a good hire to a company, they get like what, 20, 30 grand, depending on the level, right? If they bring in an executive, oh my goodness, it could be even more than that. So these are all things that's part of the industry that a lot of the common person will not know about because you're not part of the industry. You don't know how to navigate these things. But as a career clarity coach, I deal with the psychology of things. This is what you want. Once you know what you want, then you just stick with that plan A, double down on it like a mother, and you will find something that's in there. Because with a good plan, right? If you have clarity on what you want and you know there's an actual destination out there, all you gotta do is get those skills, right? A lot of us don't have a problem learning. Like, just if you want to like upskill and that's something you really love, we don't have a problem learning. So I have a client who was in education and decided to pivot into film editing. And that's what he's doing right now, right? He got that clarity, and right now all most of his time is spent on building his portfolio and upskilling on Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects, right? And over time, after you take more side hustles, you volunteer, you build that portfolio, you're bound to land a job, especially if all the branding is online, is like in line with exactly what you want, right? Even if it's an entry level position, that's fine too, right? You got to start from somewhere. You can't expect to, be a mid-level, on your first goal. Some people are able to pull that off because they have the soft skills or transferable skills for it. But if you're a complete new switcher and you don't have the skill set, the hard skills for it, then you need to build those hard skills, right? But a lot of the paralysis, and let me know if you agree or disagree on this because I'm really curious about what you're thinking. A lot of the paralysis is the fear of missing out, FOMO, right? A lot of us have a FOMO mentality because if you go down one path, you fear that, hey, this is not the future that I wanted, right? There are other futures that you're giving up on. But the reality is that for any good career branding, you got to have a clear vision of who you want to be, execute that plan A, and just stick with it. New opportunities will come out, right? And remember, this is the key thing. A lot of people are don't understand this now. The future of work is no longer about titles, right? Some people are like, I can't start this career because my degree's in psychology and I want to go into development, go into coding, right? That's not true. Like, Elon Musk literally just came out last week. I came across an article. It's like, I don't care if you don't even have a high school degree, diploma. As long as you can code and you can pass the tests and show that you're good at what you do, we don't care about your degree, right? And that's the trend now. I don't want to say that like your degrees are useless because degrees are very important. Mark Cuban, owner of Dallas Mavericks, billionaire, Shark Tank, he himself said a degree shows that you're invested in learning, you're invested in upskilling, and you're committed to something and finishing it. And that means something. And that also means networks, right? One of the biggest benefits that I've had by going to an Ivy League university, I went to Penn, and going to Oxford, is the network that I built. I have people that I can connect with that are in that network, and I'm like, hey, we went to Penn together, like, let's talk. Hey, we went to Oxford together, let's talk. And excellence is generally a habit, right? People rarely stop becoming excellent after they grow up. and that's one of the things about higher education. So skills over titles. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the U.S. predicted that the future of work, the average person is the average millennial in their 30s. They're going to have 12 to 15 careers in their life. Careers, not jobs, careers, right? And what happens is that each career has approximately 2 to 5 jobs. So you map that out, the average person is gonna be switching a lot of jobs in different things. So don't anchor yourself to a title, right? A director of operations. What does that even mean? Director. It means different things in different places. But whatever skills that you have. Hey, the main skill that I use is writing. I write awesome copy. I write awesome things. One of my skills is research. I'm very good at researching and understanding data and then communicating it, new information and communicating it. That's what I do. That's why I have a YouTube channel. That's why I do what I do. By the way, if you like what I'm doing right now, give it a like, give me a subscribe. Would really appreciate that. But yeah, that's essentially what it is. The future of work is about skills, not titles. So don't let that hold you back. As long as you upskill, you have a plan A, a vision of where you want to go, and you have a really feasible target, all it takes is to execute and get to it. You're proud that you completed your master's degree. Yeah, kudos to you. Master's degrees are depends on whether it's helpful or not, to be very honest, on your next destination. I know people who complete their PhDs, and then when they apply to their job at management consulting, they had to remove their PhD. And no, they remove it from their resume. Once they got in, they put it back in. And then people are like, oh, wait a second, am I lying then? Well, the thing is this, the resume as a document is it's basically a marketing document for a specific job, right? For a specific job. And so it's 1 to 2 pages long typically, right? It can be a little bit more, especially depending on the position and the amount of accomplishments that you've had. But it's typically 1 or 2 pages long. And if the PhD is not relevant to the job, or if a master's degree is not relevant to the job, it's okay to remove it, right? What happens later on is once you get your foot, because a lot of preconceptions and biases happen for the PhD, for something like a PhD or a master's. People are like, oh, this guy's a brainiac. This girl is all theory and no walk. I have a friend who finished his PhD. I think he did his PhD at, was it Notre Dame? And then he did his postdoc in Brown, right? So an Ivy League postdoc guy. And he was going for EY, right? Ernst & Young, for management consulting. And he had his PhD in there. And then the problem is, during the application process, they told him no, we don't know. During the interview, it was it wasn't a fit. And then at the interview, he decided to go around, to disprove the bias, because there was a bias against PhDs. It's all theory, no action, right? He's like, oh, by the way, I looked at from our last conversation, from our previous interview, we talked about this problem, and here is my proposed solution to it, right? He actually did work on a problem that they're trying to hire him to solve, and he did the work already. Here's the plan that I would implement. When they saw it, they're like, okay, this guy is not only a thinker and not only a theoretical, techno-babble kind of guy, this guy actually takes action. And therefore, they hired him, and now he's working at EY, right? So, advanced degrees, I have mixed feelings about them. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not so helpful, and it really depends, right? So you're proud that you completed it. Awesome. I'm proud I completed my PhD as well. But honestly, do I need a PhD to do YouTube channels and be a career coach? Not exactly, right? But at the same time, I don't think I'm going to regret it during my deathbed, getting my PhD at Oxford. But it's one of those things where I also wonder, was it worth it, right? I made videos about it in the past, was a PhD from Oxford worth it? And I think in the long run, it is worth it. But I do question myself. What if I spent the 6 years I spent on my PhD on a YouTube channel instead, right? Start in 2014. What would that look like? And 2014, look at people who started in 2014. They're in the million subs by now, right? Is that worth it? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling about my own story right now. All right. Time's up. 3:15. I went over time by 15 minutes. If you guys enjoyed this, give me a like, give me a subscribe if you haven't done so already. Would really appreciate it. It also please the YouTube gods. I I do this live every week on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So if this is what you like, if you want free career advice, you want questions to bounce ideas off of, you're not sure what you want to do, and you have, you want, ask questions about self-journaling, or you want to ask questions about personality, take the free personality test in the description below. I also have a free training down there if you want to learn how to find your dream career. It kind of goes into a lot more detail about the grand strategy I laid out. And I also have a guide in the descriptions below, so definitely check it out if that's something that interests you, okay? Hope this session was valuable to you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care, and have a great week. Thanks, Justin.